Okay. It's a little math humor there for the rest of you guys out there.
You're like the gift that
Angela's, my students don't laugh,
you.
so it's okay. I've just gotten
I
used.
laugh for you, Dave. My
Thank
accounting.
you, Lauren.
I laugh
Lauren,
for you.
yeah, you could come sit in my class any day. I look for the little smile, but they're wearing masks, so I don't even get that.
All
Couple
right,
weeks.
so I think we're live.
All right. Folks, we'll start with the pledge. I'll share my screen. I've got the same flag as last time. I actually bookmarked it this time, so let's see if we can pull this off. We good? All right. Up here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everybody here tonight and bring the camera back down to me. And thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight. If we see Art jump on, Art's no longer going to be with us, but if he does jump on at some point, we'll take a break and I'll save some comments for him being here. It doesn't make sense for me to pay tribute to him if he's not around. So we'll save that for a little bit later. I did want to share a few thank yous though and compliments. First, to Scott for the wonderful budget presentation that you did with the town. And I did use the word wonderful and budget presentation in the same sentence, which is hard to do. But what's always so clear to me is the relationship that you've created with whoever the elected officials are of the day. You do a great job of building that relationship, and it's obvious in meetings like that they respect you and they appreciate the time you put into the presentation. And I think that goes a real long way to helping your cause. So I did want to say that.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I also want to thank the board members who participated or were there, and some actually actively participated and others were just there in support. Really hard for me to know who you were specifically if you didn't participate, but you know who you were, and thank you for that. And in the same vein, same thank you to the board members that went to the presentation of the survey results. I know that Scott appreciates the fact that we're there, not just Scott, but all of MYFS. And a special thanks to Catherine and Scott and Darian and Rebe and Molly for doing another late night at that meeting. I know you guys get asked to do that a lot. You've even been asked to do an encore performance. And you guys just do such a great job with sharing extremely sensitive, extremely important information. It's very easy for us to sit there and get defensive when we're kind of saying that we may be part of the problem, or we may be hearing that we're part of the problem, whether it's the community or the school or whatever it is. And you guys do a really good job of sharing that information in a very non-confrontational way, and I appreciate it. All right, that's all I've got for opening remarks. I'd like to ask for us now to approve the minutes from last meeting, and I need what's the word? A motion. That's the word, a motion. And I see Kathleen. There's fewer of us, so you guys are gonna have to make more motions now. Yeah.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second? And Andrea seconds. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the motion carries. The minutes are approved. And Molly, a question of whether we have any public comment tonight.
No,
Okay.
not tonight.
And then while you're still there, how about correspondence?
I have no correspondence either.
Wow, easy day for you. we'll move on then to old business and get a quick update on the budget and special projects from Scott.
Thanks, Dave. And I see Cindy Breckenheimer's on the call, not on screen yet, but just want to welcome Cindy.
Hi.
Hey, Cindy, you want to, I don't know where you are if you want to.
Hi. I don't know. My kids are running around having
No.
dinner around me. So I'm trying to listen and not interrupt.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Those of you who don't know Cindy, she's on the Board of Finance. This is your first term on the Board of Finance, right?
Yes. I was very excited to get to be on the one who gets to listen in with you guys. So you were my
so
request.
You're our new liaison then.
Yep.
Oh, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
So welcome. And I can say I haven't, as the head of the department, I don't have any new information on our budget request. It's the budget is still in process in terms of all the boards talking and doing workshops. At some point, I might be asked to go back either to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, if they have other questions or want to clarify things. And Art's here. All right. Let me just finish this one point, and then we'll bring Art in. So there's no new information on the budget. I do want to remind people that the referendum on school renewal plan, the academy project, and I believe the sale of the Island Avenue property, all of that's up next Tuesday. So please make sure that you're paying attention to that vote. If you're not sure which way you want to go, you have questions, there's a lot of information on the town website. If you have questions for us in terms of youth and family services involvement, please let me know. But don't forget to vote. And with that,
just
we
a
have our
reminder-
timers on.
Yeah, just a reminder to parents, at least that day is also a virtual school day. So at least in the high school. So be aware that your kids will be home. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Scott.
No, want to recognize Art Simons. We had to look it up, Art, but you were a member of the board for 10 years. Does that sound about right? So you're on mute.
Art, you're on mute.
Art, you're on mute. So can you take yourself off mute so we can hear you? There you
got
go.
it. There you
I'm
go.
I'm off mute now?
Yes, you are.
Yes, that is correct. And I've been on for 10 years as of, I think, last month.
Wow. Well, I'm just going to say, just thank you. And I think everybody on the board, if you can clap, we, under normal circumstances, this would have been, a cake and cookie night. As we can't be together, we know Andrea went out to your house and
I did
gave
get
you
the
a gift.
cookies.
You did, all right.
Yes, quite a few of them, good ones.
No doubt. But I can just say personally, I think you were still on the executive committee when I became the director, and just my experience with you prior to taking this job, and then certainly after taking this job, just a steady voice, a steady presence, and you were always there. Like if there was a meeting, whether it was budget or, about our space, anything, if we needed it, you showed up. You were out at our events. You were a cheerleader, a big supporter. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I was sad to hear when you wanted to step down, but I also understand that 10 years to commit to this part of what you're interested in and your passion in the community. And we all know that you do so much for this town. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And Dave, did you want to share some thoughts as well?
Yeah, you pretty much said everything I was going to say. That's not surprising. But Art, I don't know a time on the board when you weren't here. You've been on the board as long as I have, longer than I have, and it's going to be hard to picture a board without you. I know when we were in person, we got to hear a little bit more from you, and I've always valued your contributions and working with you. And you are one of these people that's a treasure in this town. I don't know anybody who volunteers more of their time to the town than you do. And I know that leaving us is just going to give you a little bit more time to spend helping the town in some other way. And we are all very grateful for that. And I personally am and super appreciative of all the time we've had together.
Thank you. I just had a couple of words. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let Kathleen speak.
More accolades, Art. I just want to also recognize you, Art, for all your, as David and Scott said, your very sincere comments and thoughtful input all the time on the executive committee and on the board. But I also want to say that you were both of my daughter's substitute teachers. And you were really so committed to teaching and to the town, and always had the kids, the students' best interest at heart, and always ask about them. So, and they loved you as a teacher. So you have contributed in so many ways to this town. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd just like to say a couple of words. I don't want to take up too much of your meeting. The meetings, meetings take a while anyway. I know it's you guys are all busy people, but thank you, of course, for the cookies I mentioned, the gift from RJ Julia, which is great because I love to read, especially during these winter months. The thank you notes from my service on the board, especially from Dave and Scott, but the thank you note that came from everybody. I've enjoyed working with everybody in my 10 years on the Youth and Family Services Board. I'm a former Madison kid, so I felt like I was giving back to Madison kids what I got from people, from the adults here who were growing up when I was growing up in Madison. I'll always be impressed with the dedication each of you has to providing great service and programs for the children of Madison, and know that these services and programs will continue for many, many years in the future. So thank you very much. And who knows, maybe someday I'll see you again on the Youth and Family Services Board, but if not, I will definitely see you around town. So thank you very much for your kind words and actions, and I enjoyed working with you for these 10 years. Thanks again.
Thank you, Art. Have a good night.
Art, before you go, just want to make sure if you're on Facebook and you follow MYFS, there was a thank you given out on Facebook to you today. So check it out.
Oh, I'll check that out. Thank you.
And it got picked up by a bunch of people too. So you're a bit of a celebrity, at least on Facebook for the day.
Probably a lot of 14-year-olds.
Molly, can you check on Rob and see if maybe he needs to be promoted?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Art, thank you so much
All right.
again, and have a wonderful night, and hope to see you around.
I'm going to go check out the UConn basketball game now.
Yes. You got it. Good night, Art.
Okay. Stop. Thank you. Good luck with the community, with the new building.
You bet.
Thank you. And I think that brings us to the next old business topic, which is the meeting format for March and April. And, it's really hard. We've been trying to plan 2 months at a time. And, 2 months is like a lifetime in this virus. We were just talking about that. It's 2 years now. So to the best of our ability to figure out where we're going to be in March, we really feel like we should stay in the remote format for the next month. And since we're doing 2 months at a time, we're going to say at this point, March and April are going to be remote. It's our sincere hope that won't continue longer than that. And we have some ideas about, so first of all, the impact of that, and I'll let Scott talk about it. The impact of that is that it's going to eliminate the retreat that we were going to have, the special event, which we were trying to do in March. So Scott, maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
So March we had targeted for our Richmond night, would have been a dinner in person, and would have moved the time of the meeting to 6 o'clock. It was discussed among our staff. It was discussed among the executive committee, And I think just on balance, if we were feeling like the meeting was gonna need to be virtual, and again, maybe a stretch just to have everybody having a meal together, which is a really important part of the enrichment experience. If we couldn't do it the way we wanted to do it, it didn't make sense to try something sort of, haphazard over Zoom. So the decision was made to move the March meeting back to 7 o'clock. It'll be more of our, traditional kind of meeting. We're holding out hope that we can do something maybe outdoors. It's a little more of the enrichment type, maybe not involving all of our staff. It's a little tougher to get people to night meetings when you get into like May and June because of the other programs and things, and we're usually pretty tapped by that point of the year. But we are holding hope to do something special for those for one of those, or for those meetings perhaps, if we're in person, and we'll keep an eye out for that. But important for you all to know, March will be a 7 o'clock meeting. We will likely pull one of our staff presentations that we were going to do later in the year for that night, and we'll leave it at that. I don't know if people have questions about it or not. Okay.
And just a reminder that we are earlier in June this year. The meeting is the first week in June instead of the second week in June. And yeah, let's see if we can be face-to-face at that time. It should be warmer, and maybe really will lend itself to, even if we can't be indoors, being outdoors. So, and we're on to Andrea's treasurer's report, please.
Hi, everybody. We have several donations to approve. 4,000 donation of Stop and Shop gift cards from Neighbor to Neighbor. $5,000 donation from Neighbor to Neighbor for the discretionary fund. $500 donation of Stop and Shop gift cards, and a $1,500 donation to use at our discretion from the Madison J.C.'s.
Rob, was that you? Yes, okay. So Rob is making a motion that we accept the donations as read by Andrea. And Beth is seconding it. Any discussion?
Extremely generous donations.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the contributors.
And so the Neighbor to Neighbor ones are ones that do come through the periodic conversations and communication we have between our social services and Neighbor to Neighbor. So for the gift cards, of course, that's food assistance, and the discretionary fund is one of the funds that we would use for special requests. That could be emergency fuel, could be emergency housing, things of that nature. Emergency home repairs also come up this time of year. And the JCs also on gift cards, and then that 1,500 that we can use. So that'll go into our donation line that we will often tap for, whether that's training or special events or other things that are important in terms of our operations that we don't plan for in our budget, but do come up during the year. And sometimes it just goes to assist people in the community that isn't naturally covered with one of our other funds. So thank you to JCs, and thank you to Neighbor to Neighbor.
Scott, I apologize if I've asked this before. If we don't use these donations in a particular year, do they accrue, or do we have to use them, or are they reset to the town?
No, they stay in our donations account.
Okay.
And we keep up with, we keep our own accounting of the money that we have there, as well as the town. So we do have some monitoring and protections in there for the money that's in those accounts. Sometimes we're donated money that's specific to a need. Like sometimes people want to donate for substance abuse help or prevention or assistance or mental health. And so we do have categories that we keep when we know people want us to be using the funds in a certain area.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
I got one question, Scott. Have we ever considered inviting neighbor to neighbor to one of our board meetings so that we could thank them? Because they do a bang up job.
It's a
So
wonderful
they were,
question.
it was during the pandemic, they were invited by the Board of Selectmen. I think somewhere around the $90,000 marker of their donation to our COVID impact program, which by the way, wound up well over $100,000 in terms of assistance that was provided. But to answer your question, no, I don't think we've had them. I don't know if we've had them ever to a board meeting. But that's
And Neighbor to Neighbors board. This is Cindy.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
thank you, Cindy.
We were thanked at a Board of Selectmen meeting, which was really nice. So yes, I'm sure they would love to come to a board meeting though. So
it's a great idea, and I can reach out to Lori. Cindy, if you see Lori, you can mention it to her too.
I will.
We can look at maybe a March or an April. Is Lori still in Florida at this time of year? Probably.
I don't know. She was back Christmas time, but I don't know if she went back. I haven't talked to her in a while.
Scott, I wonder if it would be possible maybe to do it on a meeting where we didn't have a staff presentation and then maybe get a quick overview of neighbor to neighbor as a special staff presentation.
Okay.
All right. We still have a motion on the table. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Andrea.
Just a reminder that board members may bring their voluntary donations to the Sunshine Fund to the Madison Youth and Family Service Office. Thank you.
Thank you.
When did they become voluntary? They weren't voluntary when I was the treasurer. I can tell you that.
Yours are not voluntary.
Exactly. I would knock on doors.
Yours are mandatory.
And take a cookie too, Andrea.
And that brings us to the student presentation. I think we're down to student today. Is that right, Darian?
Yes, it is.
All right. Talk twice as fast.
All righty. So just starting off, we had our meeting with Mr. Salutary. Wellness Wednesday is back by popular demand now that little bump in COVID is back down. And along with that, we moved away from contact tracing in the school. One really cool assembly that we were going to have last Friday during the half day, or the day where all the rain was supposed to freeze, was Jane Doe No More, which is sexual crime survivors. And we were going to have an assembly. I'm not sure if it was going to be by grade, or though I don't know if they were able to do the whole school by grade. I'm getting a nod from Mr. Buller. 2 grades. Gotcha. Awesome. So, and as far as I'm aware of, it hasn't been rescheduled yet, but we are having a follow-up, or we are having our meeting with Mr. Salutary this Thursday. So I'll be sure to throw that question in there. Next, we had our student data presentation. I felt like it went very well. I felt like the adults were really interested in the students' perspective, and we were able to gather various perspectives from students, especially towards the end when there was an open forum for questions. And, I think everybody spoke, at least all students spoke at least once, which I thought was great. But it was also really nice for us to see how engaged a lot of the parents are in the kids and the community. I was talking to one of my friends after, and he was one of the panelists, and he was really surprised of how many people were registered, let alone, ask questions, and really showed a lot of interest in it. But that was really nice to see. And finally, with the sexual assault project Katie and I have been working on, we were able to squeeze in a meeting with Mr. Salutary yesterday to discuss our upcoming steps. So at this point, we're now working on coming up with an outline for captains to talk to their teams for winter sports captains, because that was still a worry that we had, that certain teams were not as comfortable speaking about this, which makes sense. It's definitely a very tough subject to talk about. So we want to make sure that there's an outline for captains to use, and coaches to support their captains with. So after that, we're going to end up doing a follow-up meeting with the winter captains, and we're going to plan on giving them questions to answer in advance, mainly framed around how we could do the presentation better for the spring captains, obviously, and hopefully throughout the rest of the years. And also, how can captains present this information to their teams? And we're really hoping to get as much criticism as we can, constructive criticism as we can, so we can improve this for the next couple of years. But other than that, we have our next meeting with Mr. Salutary on Thursday. And yeah, thank you very much.
Darian, it's about this time of year where I start to worry about you guys leaving us. So do you have like you and Katie do a lot of stuff, and is there like a transition plan for some of these initiatives that are a little bit more senior run than junior run?
Yeah, so that's something that Katie and I are both very aware of, and it's something that definitely pokes at our minds. Obviously, Reby is a great contender for a lot of things, but there are a lot of clubs that Katie has to pass down, and a lot of projects, especially this one, that I want to see carried on. But I think our plan is to get through the spring captains, and then after that, after that meeting, we'll really be able to focus on what juniors are really feeling motivated and passionate, because you don't want to hand that off to someone who may not feel as strongly as me and Katie do about it. But a good question, yet to be answered.
Folks, anybody have any other? Hi, Scott, from Boston.
Not from Boston,
Anybody
from
here?
BOS, Board of Selectmen.
Oh, BOS. I thought you were in Boston.
No, Board of Selectmen meeting.
Oh, it sounds so much less
Executive
interesting.
session
I'm
having
sorry,
fun with legal
sorry to
cases.
hear that. I figured you
No,
were.
no, no.
Wishes he was in Boston.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wish I was in Boston.
Yeah, all
Exactly.
right. Okay.
That's pretty funny.
No, it is. Anybody have anything else for Darian?
Darian, let us know how that's. We're happy to help structure the projects, and it is important for you guys to figure out if there's students that are involved. But that's also part of our responsibility too, because these projects, the fact that they live with the youth services, some of them live within the school, that helps to keep the structure to carry them on. And very interested in helping you guys. You've done just such a great job on some of these things. No one wants to see them fall off. So we're here to help you with that.
Yeah, I'm sure Justin and Melissa are both great assets for that. I'm sure they have a great list of names that we could reference that definitely help us out. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good job, Darren.
Thank you.
Darian, I thought the student presentations the other night were outstanding.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What a great opportunity to hear from the kids and some real life anecdotes and just real connection and emotion. And I wish the whole town had been there to hear it. And I hope the recording can be shared and shared widely. And I hope some people take the time to see it. But
I'll
thank
be sharing it,
you. Yeah.
It was a great opportunity for all of us. I know I got home and my mom was asking all about it because she was at my sister's gymnastics meet. But it's really just awesome for us the students to see how many people really care about this stuff. Me as I do a lot of work with you guys, Madison Youth and Family Services, so I'm more aware of it. But a lot of the students, I guess, have a harder time seeing really how much time and effort, all the parents and all the staff members here really put into it. So we really appreciate it.
Well, and I think a lot of the community has no idea how much work the agency is doing. And just to see the partnerships and the teamwork, it's great to see. So thank you for putting in the time.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Darian, thank you very much. And at this point, I will, in a second, turn it over to Scott, and he's going to introduce our staff presentation person. I mean, I just blew that intro, but he'll introduce Angela in a couple of seconds. But Angela, while I had a second, I wanted to thank you for everything you're doing for all of our youth and families. And then Scott, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
this is a quick intro, and so proud and pleased to introduce Angela Ahern, who is our assistant director for our clinic. Angela oversees all of our clinical operations. She takes all of the incoming calls, the inquiries, so she's responsible for triage on the cases, coordinating and connecting cases to referrals to clinicians that we have. And I'm sure she'll talk about this, but then also has to do the juggling act between the assignment for the client and the clinic and the clinician, and figuring out what space, especially for some of our contractual folks. And it's been quite a roller coaster ride over these last couple of years between the staffing and trying to meet the needs. There's a lot of things that I've talked about here, and Angela's going to go into a little bit more detail on what it's been, kind of what the experience for our clinic has been, what they're facing now. Also have the pleasure to introduce two of our former parent support counselors. So we'll first introduce Frankie. She is, I think there you are, Esposito.
Yes, here I am.
She was our parent support counselor last year. And I think at one point, it just decided it was not the best fit for her in terms of a position here, and still wanted to stay on. So she moved from our parent support counselor to become one of our many contractual clinicians. And we were so happy that she wanted to remain working with us. Very talented, very energetic and committed clinician in person. So glad to have her here, and get to introduce Marge Adler again. Marge, she has, I think, the second time around since she's retired, has come to save our bacon again. As you all know, this is the position I talk about, and we went to the boards to try to get this budgeted as a full-time position. Marge is our foundational parent support counselor, and we were lucky enough. Angela had happened to, I can't remember, I think it was sort of a by chance meeting. Marge and Angela talked, and at the time when we really needed somebody to help, and Marge came back to help fill that position, and Angela will talk about how we're doing that. So without further ado, it's all yours, Angela. Thanks.
Why, thank you. So I've met some of you over the years. I can't believe, and when I was reflecting back, this is the start of my 15th year with Madison Youth and Family Services. I started off as a school-based clinician, and I was based in Polson, and this is my 6th year now overseeing the entire clinic. So it's given me lots of perspective, and I am very proud of a lot of the ways that I think that we've fine-tuned some of the services that we offer. We've listened to the community in terms of need and provided either groups or more specific specialized services in place, and then also listened to folks where insurance or money were barriers to treatment, and worked really hard with Sharon Clark, who many of you know, to get paneled on insurance companies so that we can be able to be in network with them to eliminate that barrier. And we really do slide down as low, and I think as low as like $1 or free if families aren't able to meet their deductibles or co-pays, because we don't ever want to turn anybody away because they can't pay. And I think that's what makes us really unique. We are truly a community-based mental health agency, and we are there to provide services for anyone in our community. And I know when we first started off this meeting, we were talking about the pandemic. I think it's fair to say and that the mental health crisis or the mental health needs have really been exacerbated by the pandemic. We've seen that by the sheer volume of calls that have increased over the last few years. We had, I think, a total of 108 inquiries last year. We're already up to 93, and we still have 4.5 more months to go for the remainder of our fiscal year. We've had a lot of families stay in service longer. We've had a lot of families that were seeking out not only individual treatment for their their child, but wanting a lot of parent sessions and family sessions because there seems to be this instability kind of feeling amongst families within the community. And so we're working really, really hard to meet those needs. I'd say the age of the identified patient or the client, when a parent calls and they're worried about their child, I'd say the 10 and under is still very high. We saw a little dip this year in the 0 to 5, but I would say all the other categories that we've been tracking, which is 6 to 10, 11 to 14-year-olds, 15 to 18, and 19 to 21, have stayed fairly consistent from last year to this year. Just the numbers are going up. Mood regulation, for those of you that might be interested, which is children that have big reactions to problems and maybe can't find the proper techniques to self-soothe and aren't sure what to do and have a lot of tantruming behavior, has been consistent for the last few years, and that is still going strong. And I'll have Frankie share a little bit about a group that she helped launch in the summer, and we're going into our 3rd round of it to manage that. And we did have to bring Marge Adler back out of retirement for her 2nd time, because this parent support counselor piece is so important. Kids don't exist in a vacuum, and families, I think this year more than ever, are starting to realize that they really need to come together and work as a cohesive unit to feel stabilized and to be able to support one another during these very still unpredictable and unprecedented times. And so we're doing that. The other couple of trends I'll just highlight quickly, and then I'm going to talk about how we've worked really creatively to meet the needs of the community this year, is I think with this increase in mental health awareness and people asking for help, there's been a lot more referrals that we've had to make to hospitals where kids are really getting to this place where they're feeling unsafe. So that number's increased within this past year. And the other thing that's really stood out is the number of calls that we've had to make for DCF, because again, just this escalated emotional reactivity within homes. And so we've had to increase those. And we're doing everything we can to be able to support families and to help them get through this crisis stage and get them a little bit more stabilized. But last year, I think, was hard for not only us, but the entire world in terms of meeting the demand. And it pained me to have to put people on the waiting list. And I think we still were able to move people slightly quicker than folks in private practice, but it still didn't feel good to have to turn people away or to have to triage depending on the severity of the calls. So this year, even though we were down one almost full-time position, we just got really creative in terms of how we would try to patch together a network or like a base of clinicians. And so we have our 2 school-based clinicians that you already met that do still maintain clients in our outpatient clinic. Scott and I maintain a small caseload in addition to doing our administrative responsibilities. We had 3 interns this year that you'll get to meet in a couple of months, as opposed to the 2 we typically take. So we took an additional one. And we have 5 contractual clinicians that they do fee for service. So they come in, they meet the needs, and we were able to recruit 2 licensed and well-seasoned clinicians. Because again, we noticed the increase in severity of some of the cases that were coming in, especially in the older kids with anxiety and depressive symptoms. So I think we're doing a nice job of maintaining. We still, knock on some wood, we don't have a wait list yet. We're getting full, but we're still able to accommodate the need as we are now. But I don't want to take up the whole time. I want to be able to give both Marge, who was gracious enough to come back and work with families and stabilize our scope program, and then Frankie speak as well. So you can hear from their perspective some of their strengths and what they're doing to help our clinic and to help our community. So Marge, you want to go first? Only because I can see you on my box right there. You're on page 1.
Okay, I'm unmuted. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. Yep, I came back again out of retirement. It's like in my blood, you know, I love this job, but not a permanent job, Scott. Don't get all excited. Scope was formulated so many years ago, and what was happening is we all sat down and we could tell early on kids that were identified in preschool and in kindergarten that if we didn't do some intervention somewhere, it was going to escalate to a point where these kids were going to be issues as they got older. So what happens with Scope now, and it has changed a little bit over the years, but it's same basic idea. We're identifying the school and Madison Youth and Family Services work together to identify families and kids at need and what's going on. And then when the school sits down with the parents and offers them scope services, there's a form that they fill out that they're willing to do this. And that form is sent to Youth and Family Services. And we get some history from the school regarding what's going on. So we know a little bit more before we actually bring the family and the child in. Now, when they come in, you have to kind of decide where is your best intervention. Is it with the family? Is it with the child? Is it with both? And you kind of get a feel for meeting with them, seeing the interaction, the communication, and knowing exactly how you're going to handle this. So I'm doing it this year with one of the interns that you're going to meet down the road. Her name is Alyssa DeAndre, and she's phenomenal. She's a student, an MF, she's in marriage and family therapy. So she's a perfect fit for this parent support. And we work really, really well together. Sometimes I'll meet with the parents and she'll meet with the child. There are a lot of parents are so busy now. There's so much going on in their lives and they're working and they don't have the time. And they also feel a little bit guilty about the fact they don't have enough time to sit down with their children. So they may not, follow through with some of the limits, the consistency that they may need to do for these kids to feel safe. So very often I'll sit down and do some parent education, some strategizing with the parents, and Elisa will very often sit down with the child. And I'm trying to share with Lisa the different things that I've done with children. A lot of play therapy. I brought in a number of books and exercises. I brought in some figures for sand play that meet our clientele. And so we're both working together, but when I can't be there, she's there doing that with the child, and it's wonderful. And we have constant communication with the school. So we're all on the same page with where the needs are. We currently have 9 families that we're working with. And because there's been parent-teacher conferences, I was told this week in a scope meeting that there's more coming. Because there's more being identified. And again, this is 10 sessions that are free to the families. At the end of those 10 sessions, they have an opportunity to either continue with individual help or with the child or family work. And you just saw my dog go by. He's a trained therapy dog now. So I bring him in with the families. And I'm not sure who loves him more, the parents or the kids, but he's just been wonderful with sitting down, and the kids come over and they're hugging him, and same with the parents, and the temperature just goes way down in the room, and it's very, very exciting. One of the little children that we work with said, "Boy, you need to have one of these in every school." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." But right now we have one here. I'm trying to, are there any questions? I'm trying to give you a real overshadow of what this whole thing is.
I'm just curious why the 10 free sessions, but maybe there's a state obligation there or something.
Angela, you probably can answer that or what? Good question.
Yeah, they are time limited because it's a grant that's given to us that's shared between the Madison Public Schools and our agency. So in order to accommodate the volume of cases that come over the course of the academic year and make it fair for everybody, we offer the 10 sessions. But it doesn't mean that treatment stops after the 10. The 10 sessions are really intended to be almost solution focused and assessment based to see exactly what it is that the school and the families identifying as the most crucial need, and then being able to, after that, make very specific recommendations to what would best help that family. Sometimes if whatever was identified is resolved within 10 sessions, then there's no need for ongoing treatment. But then sometimes the parents might decide that they want to do more skill building so that they can help not only the child that came in for treatment, but then all the remainder of their children. Sometimes if a kid who's presenting as very anxious might need his own very specialized skill building with using cognitive behavioral therapy. So then we'll make some recommendations for what would be best kind of going forward. But treatment doesn't end, just the free assessment and solution focused portion that's covered by the grant ends. But then we make recommendations that either stay with us if they'd like, or we can make a community for referral if they prefer, but they're welcome to stay with us for as long as they would like.
And there's something else I forgot to say is when we have the client sign a release so that we can speak with specific people in that child's life, whether it be a pediatrician, another clinician, another service that the family's involved with, and getting all that information. And again, working as a team. It takes a village, and that's what Scope is all about. That's how it started, and that's what it is. To reach out and get as much information so that we can help with that parent, we can help walk with that parent and help them understand what their challenges are, how to best help them, how to best help the family, how to make changes so that they become much more aware and they're not alone in doing that. So it's just a wonderful program.
And really the target population for this scope group is that 10 and under. So it's intended to provide early intervention. So as kids are popping up on school radar, because they're the ones that make the referrals, we are hoping that by intervening at that early level, we're able to create some positive and sustainable change at that point. And then maybe we'll never see them again. They won't need to come back when they're a teenager or when they're older. But lots of times, if they've had that really positive and connective experience early on, then they will come back if there's another bump in the road. So it does kind of help, I think.
Oh,
and I would say even for our outpatient clinic, the school and pediatricians are probably our top 2 referring agents. And then the number 3 would be former clients that have said good things about our services to other community members.
I can't imagine it's an easy statistic to have, but do we have any anecdotal or hard data on how effective the program is? Like, do we track these students through high school to see that they do make it to graduation, that they, I don't know what we consider a success to be, or that they stay away from the law enforcement or any of that stuff?
The only thing that we could comment on is whether or not we've seen them return to service, but we wouldn't necessarily, if a family doesn't remain in contact with us or provide us with an update, we wouldn't necessarily have that information to be able to track that. I don't know for, confidentiality reasons how we'd be able to do that unless the parents, came back and told us.
And I think too, like, how do you measure a success? So I think in some cases, the early intervention allows for students to be identified and receive services and to receive them at a period in their life before they run into more difficulties. And so if you think about this from a prevention standpoint, you identify kids a little bit earlier, you create a more supportive environment, a more supportive relationship between school, parent, and the community. And then you've got something special, like you've got a good footing. So as that student may have difficulties, if it's a special education need, then that student gets the help that they need and they don't wind up having more struggles and creating, more opportunities for parents and schools to get on more adversarial terms. And there are school districts where, the experience of parents to get help for their kids is much different. It's a fight. It's my child needs this or my child needs that. And not that doesn't happen in this district, but there's a real direct effort to engage parents as partners, and this kind of a program that involves direct support to parents is a really big part of that, and why we think it's so important to keep this going. Like we don't fight for this position because it's it's fun. It's really foundational in terms of what we do. And I think it represents a systems approach to supporting kids, especially kids that we're trying to identify at an earlier age, so we can set the trajectory on a much more stable path. So if that.
And really, as a licensed family therapist, I can't say enough, the value of being able to work with the entire family unit is only going to produce much more sustainable change within that family and for that particular child.
Yeah, I have no doubt that it's a lifesaver for these students, and that it probably changes families forever. I didn't know if there was any way.
How do we measure it?
I'm just thinking in terms of, your asks and how we can support those.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
we're gonna have to find out how we could, how we could document that further. We can document
They may not
the
be able
frequency.
to. And, that may just be.
And if Marge came back to ask for another Marge Adler Award, we can't do two. So
I don't know. I think she's just trying to angle for another retirement party.
But I do think that the fact that we have Marge on here, who was gracious enough to return for the second time, and we have Frankie, who's going to speak next, who also decided to stay on. She's been connected to our agency since she was an intern. And I think one of the things that we do a really nice job with, not just for the clients that we serve, but I think just the culture of the agency, is that we make it the kind of place that is supportive and does encourage people and does lift people up, that people want to stay or return and stay connected in some way.
Thanks, Angela. That is exactly the reason why I've been at MYFS for what feels like so long, but also 2 seconds. Yeah, I started as an intern. I'm an MFT as well, like Angela. Started as an intern. I was the parent support counselor for about a year, and then recently shifted to contractual clinician, as Scott had said, to focus on working with more teens and families. We've actually we're about to start running our 3rd group for zones of regulation, which Angela had mentioned was a certain area of concern with some kids and emotional regulation issues, which I know that we saw come through scope a lot as well. So we're starting this group, which basically puts emotions into different color zones so the kids can more easily identify and learn how to express what they're feeling and how their feelings affect others. So we've had 2 successful runs of this group in the summer and then in the fall with about 6 to 8 kids per group. And we have a new one coming up this week. I got 2 more people that are interested in the group today, which is very exciting. So I'm doing that along with Elisa, who is one of our interns who Marge had mentioned that she works alongside, and she is fabulous. We have a really great group of 3 interns this year that I hope all stay on. So yeah, that's kind of the exciting stuff that's coming up with our group. And also what we've added in this time, different from the last 2 times that we've run it, is we've added a parent component. So the last week of the group, the kids can show their parents what they've learned. Parents also get a little lesson on what their kids have learned and get some tips and tricks so they can better support their kids using what we've taught them at home.
Any questions?
So I'm feeling very, I'm feeling very lucky for our team. I know I probably don't have much more time to speak. So if I could just make one quick little plea on what hopefully you as the board could do to continue to support us. So just hearing, the volume that we are doing this year in terms of providing mental health services for the community, and having that many people that we're kind of piecing together to make that happen, as Scott alluded to, the space has become an issue. So we've used pretty much every office in our main building, 3 offices in Memorial Town Hall as well as the lower level. And we've now just also had permission to start to use the Chamber of Commerce building But there have been times where an emergency appointment would come up and we've had to shift. Like last week, I had to bring a kid into a Memorial Town Hall, the upper level, right after a group of seniors were finishing their painting class because there was no room. Every single room we were using was already in use. So space has really become an issue in order for us to continue to meet the demand of the community. And Molly and Sharon have been wonderful trying to help us, but there is a large portion of time that does get spent just trying to magically rearrange rooms and sessions to make sure everybody's needs could be met. And then the other thing would be, as lucky as we are to have Marge back for this second time, as she said, it is time limited, so we can't keep her forever. So when this fiscal year ends, Marge will officially retire, I think, again, and that's going to leave another vacancy in our parent support counselor position. And I think just the turnover alone tells you it is a vital position, but in order to get somebody who would want to stay and stay long term, if we could offer something that is full-time with benefits, I think then we would have that same kind of longevity as we've had in many of the other positions throughout the agency. So that's my selfish plea, but it's not just for me, it's for the good of the community as well.
Well played.
And I'm happy to answer any questions if you had them, but I just didn't want to take up too much more of your time if you've heard plenty.
Kathleen, you had your hand up a minute ago. Did you have a question or comment?
Just a question, and hi, Marge. It's so nice to see you come back and do what you do best. Are you seeing any difference now, sort of pandemic now versus, years ago, with the stressors and the issues that the children and their families are dealing with? More profound, different, similar?
More anxiety.
More anxiety.
Much more anxiety. And the mood regulation. I'm so glad Frankie's doing what she's doing, because every single family we are working with, there's a degree of that mood regulation and the emotional regulation, because there's been so many changes, unpredictable kind of changes in their lives. And children need that consistency. They need that predictability. And that's not been around, and we're just starting back. So we're seeing all of the things with the kids and with the families of just not knowing when the next foot's going to, the shoe's going to fall.
It's interesting, and I'm sure the changes with being school, in-person, classroom, virtual, back and forth, that level of disruption, I'm sure played a part in some of that anxiety and stress. And has that been articulated, or are you seeing that? I mean, will we get on stable footing once we put this pandemic behind us, which we're all counting on?
Yeah, it's not just the children, it's the families, it's the parents. They're as anxious, if not more so sometimes, than the children. Children are usually looking to that model. But if that model is having a real hard time, it makes their difficulty much more intense. You just hope that once the pandemic settles down and we get some form of normalcy, it just, I don't know. And I'm optimistic in thinking that along the way, we're learning a lot. We're learning about coping. We're learning about how to be resilient. We're learning so many strategies. And hopefully that's not just a personal thing. That's everybody, So.
I love the glass half full, but then I also worry about the glass half empty, which is we're spending way more time on social media and being catty with each other. And, I'm sitting in my office that I haven't left since 6 this morning, claustrophobia. So there's a lot of things, to your point, I think, of adding to parental stress also.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right.
It really has dramatically changed everything. You just see impacts across the board. And it was, I had the opportunity to sit in on the Daniel Hand faculty meeting today, and there was a comment about behavior that we're noticing that's very noticeable, I think probably among teachers because they're on the front lines of this, where you're seeing, what have to be best described as behavioral delays. So you're seeing what used to be typical sort of middle school behaviors now appearing more at the high school. And then there was a comment, that there was that same kind of observation in college students, so freshmen, sophomores in college, that behaviors that are appearing that you would normally have seen in high school. So, I think the impact of all of this is still far from being fully understood and really in any kind of measurable way. Again, I think it puts a premium on, how are we managing mental health services? How are we, putting in place prevention efforts and strategies, for more among large groups of students and youth, as well as really thinking systemically about how we're supporting families. Like all of that is so important right now. So there are more questions for our clinic staff. Before they go, so it's important to point out, and while we have Scott and Cindy here, when you're talking budget-wise, I want to point out that we've stretched to do this, and how many times have I come to either board to ask for more money?
Is that rhetorical?
Yep. I was hoping you were going to say no, never.
What do you want me to say, Scott?
Never.
We have stretched every dollar here, and I'm not going to say never that we're not going to, trust me on that, for this year. But we've never come for a special appropriation. In fact, like there's money and recovery funding that we asked for like $10,000 to stretch Taylor's position last summer. That's the extent of which we've used any of that money for staffing. So I want to point out that we've stayed within our budget. We've stretched every single penny that we've had to do these, to provide the services, and we're not going to stop doing that. That's what we do. There's a great deal of passion and creativity that goes into what we do. So when you're having the deliberations, particularly around the two assets we have that are specific to our clinical services, the really, to me, the low-hanging fruit is the school-based clinician one, because that's about $10,000, and that's really to fix some problems we've had inherent in those positions to grade them correctly and to make Taylor full-time. On the parent support counselor, it's to make that full-time. We have that budgeted as a part-time position, so if it doesn't get funded for full-time, we'll be back where we've been, which is to recruit for the position as a part-time and sort of piece it together as we have in years past. It's just we have really good sound information now that it's a tough position. It's one that, without sort of the full-time status and the benefits, it really is not a competitive position. And it's very unique and very important to what we do. So hopefully that comes across.
I was going to say, if it helps, part of what we do provide back to the town, besides providing the actual direct clinical service to families, is we do collect revenue. And I'd say if we go up until the end of last fiscal year and we look at a 5-year plan, we increased our revenue by almost 69%. And if you look at where we are now, like a snapshot today versus the same time period last fiscal year, we're already $14,000 beyond where we were. So we are, again, with the piecemeal and creativity and the flexibility of having fantastic people that are willing to stretch, we're able to meet the needs of the community, but we are also giving something back. And we're hoping that, perhaps there is a way to use some of the money that we help generate to even if it's possible to refund our own positions so that we can continue to meet the needs of the community.
I would say emphasize those points significantly in the context of the process. Just to react, Scott, to what you just said, I think we're in as we all know, multi-referendum year. Yeah. And I think, that is, depending on what happens, is going to dictate, I think, decisions that we make and are able to make relative to the May budget. So we're just starting the budget conversations, as you guys know. So it's literally, I think this week we have our first one. So, but it's going to be a tough year.
Yeah.
Because I think the public is going to demand little increase.
Oh, and we understand that. And look, I think that we haven't used recovery money for staffing. More of our programming is something that we'd be, I think, open to. I think to get the position funded in the budget, that's going to be a long-term goal. It has been, it was before, I can't lie, it was before the pandemic. So that we need it more because of the pandemic, true, but it's, I think it's disingenuous to, to have it funded, on a more of a temporary basis, and then to have somebody come back and, when we want to have it funded full time past the pandemic. So we're being upfront with what we need, and thank you. We appreciate that feedback. All right, so I think we're getting a little bit late into the meeting. I'll kick it back to you, Dave.
I'll kick it back to you, Scott. First, thank you to the three of you for being here tonight and for all you do. You are certainly welcome to stay and listen to Scott's director's report. Most people do because it's that good. But you're also welcome to say goodnight, and we'll catch you in the future. Scott, it's your turn.
Good night.
Thank you. Yeah, my son's been trying to get my attention, so I'm going to log off as well. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Angela.
Bye-bye. If you haven't had a chance to look at your director's report yet, there is our cover page, and that's Marge. And as Marge spoke of Alyssa, who is our intern who's working with her, you will meet all of our interns at the April meeting, all three of them. They are phenomenal. Like we've been so blessed this year with people that have joined us in one way or another, and our interns are incredibly impressive. I don't have a long report, so I want to just touch on a few things. As Dave mentioned, thank you for everybody who logged on or signed on and was able to make it for our survey presentation. That was absolutely a very heavy lift from the very beginning, putting the survey together and getting it done at the school. We've talked a lot about that in terms of the setup and getting the students to feel comfortable, and then processing the data and then rolling the data out. And credit to Catherine Barden, who just shows up time after time and works really hard and can talk about the data off the top of her head. Could share with you that a community member had seen the presentation on the video and called and just wanted to walk through the survey data and just started asking questions, and wound up on the phone with Catherine, and Catherine just walked her through her questions. And it's just credit to Catherine. So on the presentation itself, I think our high point was 54 participants. Molly, is that correct? So 54 participants. We had a really good showing of local town leadership. Peggy Lyons, our state senator, Christine Cohen, our state rep, JMP Parker. I know Scott Murphy was there. I think Al was there. We had great representation from leadership in the school. So Dr. Craig Cook, TJ Salutary, and just a number of community members that were either in leadership positions in an area. And so it felt good for us to have those folks represented. Of course, it doesn't feel great that, you didn't have more sort of parents coming out of the woodwork, although we did do a presentation specifically for the PTO at the high school. So we think a lot of the parents who perhaps would have come out for our community presentation, I think were in attendance when we did presented this to the PTO. Since we did this last week, we've had 126 visitors to the video. So just in terms of so far since that night, we've had at least double the amount of people, over double the amount of people viewing it than it showed up for that night. Now, we don't know to what degree did they see it, or why they're watching it. In full disclosure, my sister, who lives in Groton, watched part of it out of her own sheer curiosity for what I do. I guess I don't know, but so I'm sure that there was some of that. Again, just this is another way for us to message things out into the community. The reactions are very interesting to me because we have heard from people, always surprised around what we reported. It's been said the students just did a great job. They were on point, they were poised, they answered questions very directly. And full disclosure, I felt at times some of the feedback had to feel critical to the school folks that were there. So bringing these things up and there were comments about a miscommunication. There was that piece of it too. And then discussions with Principal Salutary and some email correspondence with Dr. Cook. There's absolutely zero pushback. There's this continuing sense of, we know that we have these issues. We are not backing away from them. We are part of the solution. And you hear that over and over again. And so I want to emphasize, credit to the school system for, being very open about student input and hearing what is really hard information. And it really isn't reflective of the school. So like the issues that are coming up are issues that we know involve our youth in all parts of their lives. And actually it's the school that's there to help them and goes so far to support kids. And our interest is, where else can we make a dent? Where else can we make some progress on some of these bigger issues, whether they're the gender issues, the violence issues, substance abuse, anything that we feel like, mental health, that the environmental factors on these issues are outpacing what we're doing. Like, that's really the issue. If you think about what's happened over the pandemic specifically, that's impacted our youth in terms of like these gender differences and the harassment and how kids are interacting with each other. You think about what's happened during the pandemic has been an incredibly huge increase in youth being isolated and depending on their social media and internet content at a time where social connections and healthy structures around them have been pared back. So you have all of this inappropriate, horrible, unhealthy messaging that's increasing, and all of the healthy protective factors and supports going down. So should it be a surprise that we have kids acting the way that they are, not fully understanding what's going on or why it's not working, and having the kind of issues that we have? And I'm being very broad. I realize that this is, this is much more complex than just my simple explanation, but that's what we're really up against. And so we know the school's partnering with us. The next step in all of this is to meet more with them and start to message into the community what we're doing already, which is quite a bit, and where we want to start to hone some things, both being delivered to students, in some cases getting students that are already very involved, helping to promote and empower them to get other students to listen to them and being involved. I think one of the biggest challenges is getting parents. It's everybody's tapped and stretched just taking care of their own kids and just getting them back and forth to school and getting them to activities. So it's hard to get people more out to hear more of what they can do to deal with things that are, maybe not in their consciousness from day to day. So that's a little bit of what we're up against. And, the next step from here, we have a meeting. Actually, Dave Buller, myself, Catherine, TJ, and Dr. Cook are going to meet on Thursday to kind of put our heads together on how we want to package this together, keep working in some areas. And then the Board of Ed has asked for us to come and talk about, not to do another data presentation, but to do a little bit more discussion on next steps. That'll happen in April. And I think what we want, a lot of the focus is going to be around that developmental asset building, because we know that the solution to this is really taking advantage of the strengths and the what we have already existing in this community and building on that and getting as many of those influences and positive things going sort of in step with less risky taking and less risk taking and more like positive, healthy behaviors. And at this stage of the night, I just feel like I'm just talking word salad, so I'm going to probably stop at this point. But again, just thank you to everybody for your support, for coming out. A lot of work to do, a lot of work ahead of us, and appreciate all your support. And where we have opportunities for you to get more involved, we'll put those out there and hope that you can be a part of things.
Thank you, Scott. We are up to our, any questions for Scott?
Not questions, but just kudos on that presentation with all the data, the student data. It was outstanding, and I really loved your acting skills, Scott. They were fantastic.
It was quite a night.
I bet. I bet.
On that note, we have quite a few liaisons these days, and we have an embarrassment of riches. They're all here today. So I think in the interest of time, we'll see if anybody has anything noteworthy to report. So that would be Andrea and Rob and Scott and Jeremy.
I can go super quick.
You're up.
We have a referendum coming up on the 15th. 3 sort of big things going on, and we just need to remind people to get out to vote. So that is, I'm trying to stay very present on social media to answer as many questions and point to the facts as I possibly can. And there are many, many facts out there for people to take advantage of. So certainly point them to town websites for data sheets and studies and all the wonderful things that are out there to take advantage of to get people informed to make an informed vote. It's important, and we'd love to see good turnout.
Thanks. I neglected to mention Cindy too, because I don't see her anymore, but there's 5. We have 5 liaisons today. So Cindy, if you are here, you're welcome to share out as well.
I would, excuse me, I would urge everyone to please fill out a survey for affordable housing. The deadline is probably next week, but they may extend it. We had a previous survey that was written by the consultant and really dealt with a more general view of affordable housing. This survey was written by the committee, and it's more specific to Madison, and it has open-ended questions so we can get a better idea of what residents, how they feel about affordable housing and what they think it should look like and where it should be. And there will be another forum, a town forum, where the results of the survey will be given and discussed. And the report has to be written by June. So time is going quickly.
I took mine, by the way, Andrea, and it was quite good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
I just dropped a link to the survey in the chat. If you want to take it right after this call is over, you can do it.
It was quick. It didn't take long.
No, about 4 or 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. I would say more 5 than 4, but yes.
Others.
But you're a selectman, so that should be.
I'm a little slow sometimes.
It's a tough crowd, man.
Speaking of a little slow, I don't know what's going on with the weed committee, but I think
we do.
I think it's going to happen. But we're talking maybe it's not going to. I don't know what's going to happen.
Which committee?
So the ad hoc weed committee.
I think he said the ad hoc weed committee. Yes.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but maybe
I know that it's still in the works. I think between budget and the referendums, the capital projects, I think it's been a confluence of really bad timing. I don't know, Scott, if you've heard other things.
We talked about several ad hoc committees tonight, actually, on the select meeting. It was at 5 this evening. One was more the ethics committee, one was a facilities committee, though. So those are the 2 primary ones that were on the agenda.
But I heard the weed committee is still going to.
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now on social media for sure.
Yeah.
I'm only bringing it up because I know that they put out that they wanted somebody to be on the committee from each of the boards. They made it like a huge priority, and then they just went like a puff of smoke. Not to draw.
I think they've interviewed.
Did you literally just say that?
I literally
He's
just
using
said that.
It's a little. I have my drum set right here. Should I be giving you rim shots?
No.
So,
Listen, as long as you can play Floyd, I'm, okay.
I can.
Anyway.
So I'm pretty sure we've done all the interviewing at this point, but I'll get back to you guys on that because I know we've gone through some cycles and we had two selectmen, was not me, but two selectmen, a Republican and Democrat, interview the candidates and then we go forward. I just don't think they've actually physically started the committee yet, but I'm pretty sure that we're at the doorstep at this point. There's a lot of committees that we've been interviewing for, so it's
Hang in there, Rob. It's coming.
I hear you.
Just a few more puffs of smoke away and you'll be
Everybody's
Had to go there,
buzzing
didn't
about it, Rob. Lieutenant York, anything to add to the conversation? I feel like this was the wrong crowd to have this conversation.
Well, nothing marijuana wise, but I reached out to, I sent an email out about the Game Changers, that mentoring program that's going to be started with the Madison Youth and Family and Polson Middle School. And we had several officers that are, looking forward and are going to volunteer for that program. I know there's an informational section in March, so going to get more information with that. But I have gotten good feedback that there's officers that, want to participate in that program.
That's great. Wow.
Scott, you got 2 seconds to elaborate on that?
This is a collaboration between us and Polson and building more mentoring opportunities and a mentoring program that will connect adults with students. And I believe during their school day, this model is going to work in that way. And it's not something we talked a lot about here, but I will be sharing more details about it as we go forward. And thank you for bringing that up, Jeremy. I really appreciate that.
Yep. So we got a good bunch of officers are excited about it. So
that's great.
Not surprised.
Anything else to add or any questions for our liaisons?
I have one last update, which will be kind of a fun one. So take you back 4 years ago when Abigail Murphy was your liaison to Madison Youth and Family Services. She has officially graduated from Connecticut College as a neuroscience major. She just came back from study abroad in Copenhagen and is now living in the house here, working on her patient hours to become a PA. So
wow.
I thought you guys would appreciate hearing that.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Abby was our student rep.
Tell her there are 3 openings on the board right now, and she is certainly welcome to put in an application for one of them.
There you go. I will let her know.
I mean, right?
She would love that.
We definitely have to scrutinize it, but
she's got my vote.
Rob was talking about we didn't have young enough people. So
it would be an awesome idea.
She'd be great.
All right. Tell her to expect a phone call from me.
Sounds good.
All right. I have no chairperson comments. I feel like I've already given them all. So I'm going to open it up to any other discussion from anybody, any board members or any of the other participants tonight.
I just wanted to say that I'm so impressed with the clinical aspects of Madison Youth Services. I've been more involved with the outreach and the community with the teens in the high school, but Angela and the whole team have done a tremendous job through our horrible pandemic for mental health. And as a private practice clinician, knowing how my peers and I have been completely overwhelmed with how much work we have, there's no possible way we could ever reach all the people that are in need, that places like Madison Youth Services are where we refer people to when we're in this position of not being able to take any people on. And they've done a tremendous job of seeing as many of the clients as they possibly can. And I fully agree that they need more space to be able to do that work in.
Tuesday, you can make a difference on Tuesday if you agree.
Yeah, I will be there.
No, not just you. I meant everybody else, because I know you'll be there. Scott, to clarify, is there a full-time, one person who spends 100% of their time just seeing patients?
No.
There isn't even right? Not even a single person.
Well, so actually,
in the office, not counting student in school.
Our closest what we have, Aaron and Taylor are 100% of their job is direct service, and they're primarily stationed at the schools during school days, and then we'll see a small amount of kids in our outpatient clinic.
It's kind of remarkable how many patients you see given that structure. Other comments, questions? For the good of the order.
would mention Darian. So what Scott just shared. So Abby has set a very high bar for you. So we are going to expect things in about 4 years to hear back on how you're doing. Okay, no pressure. No pressure on you.
I don't know if I'm going to be a neuroscientist, but hopefully I'll be able to, come back and be a board member one day. I'm looking forward to that day.
Did you get, did you figure out your school yet, Darian?
No, I haven't figured out my school. So due to football, I've been I chose to visit now more during the winter and spring, but I got to go see Marist last week. I'm going up to Bryant URI. I've gotten into all my schools, so it really is just down to, picking which one I want to go to at this point.
Congratulations.
But much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darian.
All right. Well, having completed all the business of the board tonight, the meeting is adjourned. We'll see you all in a month.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.